Okay, so we're going to do a quick run through of OneTrack Beta here, just to give you an idea of the differences and maybe an idea of some of the new features on it. I'm just going to open it up here. Okay, so I've been working on this for over a year, so the maybe to me some of the differences might not be as obvious as to you. The first thing we see here, we're looking at the OneTrack playlist at the top and then my iTunes playlist below. You'll see on the right hand side we have an ellipsis and a green dot on these two. If we tap on the ellipsis, we'll get an autoplay and a loop button, which allows us to turn on or off autoplay or loop for the entire playlist. So this has been removed from settings and is not a system-wide thing now, it's per playlist. If we slide to the left on a playlist, we can clean it, which means we can remove those settings like autoplay or whatever, or we can duplicate it. So let's just duplicate this one. So we now have the third copy of recent. We'll see the name here is recent plus plus. So again, we can go to that one, we can maybe clean that one, confirm it, yes, we want to clean it, playlist has been cleaned, which means that the autoplay has gone. We can rename it, so we'll just give that one another name, we call it recent Fred, and rename that one. We can duplicate it again. Obviously, if we duplicate it again, we can recent Fred plus, and we can delete it. It'll ask us if we want to delete it. Yes, we do. Thank you. Before we move away from here, when we first start up, we get a startup screen, which is brought from here. So we tap on this question mark here, and we get a sort of a front page. So we've got our tutorial, user manual and release notes. These won't be up to date yet. These will be ready obviously for the release, but they're not quite ready for prime time yet. We have the settings from our front page, master volume, self-explanatory, show timer. We'll go through these in detail a little bit later. But just to be aware that these are accessible from this top level. If we go into here, we have a load of tracks here. Let's get down to something a bit more interesting. Choose a track. So before we go into here, let's have a look at this. Okay, so that's the new selection is obviously very bright. GP here is our new track. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this into portrait for a moment. Just give us a bit of a better view on this here. Okay, so now this is running on an iPad. Things are identical on the iPad Pro and all of the iPhones now. The screens are actually identical. We have the ellipsis, which allows us to hit autoplay or loop. So let's put autoplay on that. We put loop on that one. As before, we can disable and re-enable things. We can swipe on these things, clean, rename, duplicate, and delete. So let's just duplicate this one, see what happens. It puts it in just below it there. Okay, so there's the first bug. We can see that this one here it didn't refresh that properly, so that's something that I can take a look at. Okay, so now we have two copies of Can't Get My Love Alone. Let's choose that one there. I'll just pause that. Go back into that. This one here, we might want to delete that one. Okay. But what we can do now is we can reorder tracks. So if I just pick up a track and move it down, see the GP has moved down here. I can move it up. It now becomes our next track. I can move it up above it. If we go down to the bottom, it will start scrolling up. So we can drop it in there. We can bring it up to wherever we want. Okay, so very easy, just a small movement off to the right and then just move the track to where you want. So you can just pick up as many tracks as you want, move them down to wherever you want. You'll see that our next track changes because it's just set at the moment to be the track that plays after the first track. So as we move it down, obviously that loses its next track status and it becomes the track after it. Okay, back in here, let's just turn loop off for that. And again, this is okay, so that's a little bit better. Again, some of these things are a bit untidy at the moment. Okay, so again, we've got basically the same idea as we had before, but we'll notice that we have the ellipsis here on our current and next tracks as well. So we can, in fact, change these. So let's take off the autoplay on Can't Give My Love Alone. We have the track volume, and we have the mark in and out and count-ins just as we had before, and slide to lock. Okay, so not much changed there. It all should look fairly similar. Let's go into our landscape. What I've done is I've tried to not lose what we had with OneTrack with this new version. I've just tried to enhance it, to bring it into line, so that it works perfectly on all of the iPads and the iPhones, the different sizes, portrait and landscape. Let's go into settings and see what's happening in here. So our show timer, and we can set however many minutes. Let's just have a 3-minute show timer. We can start it on play or we can start it now. So let's just start it now, and it starts counting down. So it tells us what playlist we have and how long our playlist is. If we go back in, we'll see that our show timer is obviously playing there. One of the big differences is that we now have, when we go into locked view, we have in bright yellow at the top there, we have the show timer time as a visible time. I can just tap on that and it tells me my current time, which is just a few minutes after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it'll switch back to the show timer time. We still get the visual countdown on that too. Let's go back into show timer. We can pause the timer. Sometimes you want to pause the timer, or we can just stop it and it'll reset it. Okay, next thing is cue sheets. Our cue sheets have changed a bit, but the same information is available. Our preview allows us detailed, concise, or track listing views. So our track listing, we have, this is quite a big playlist, so we have quite a few tracks listed here, 3 pages of them, and we have our detailed preview, which is more or less what we had before, and we have our concise preview, which is a smaller version. Now, the PDF that will be created here is actually in landscape because we're creating the preview in landscape. If I was in portrait, the thing would be obviously done in portrait. Back again, volume fades. So we have 3 types of fades as we had before. This is slightly visually different, but actually is more or less the same sort of thing. There's a bit more description on here. We just scroll up or down to set whatever our fades are for the different volume fades. The remote controllers, I have disabled this for this release. I'm working on it at the moment and it'll be on a one of the later betas. Help and information, tutorial manual, contact details, training videos and release details. These are more or less similar to what they were before. Personalize OneTrack, this has changed. So we can use tempo for count-in, disable track after play and ignore autoplay after next. These are similar features to what were in before. They're just in a slightly different place. At the top here you notice that we have the ability to change colors. So obviously some of them are quite garish. We go through the full color spectrum. We could get like a purple color there. We can see that that reflects in everything that we do. So that's our playing view. Just everything works in purple now. And let's go back into personalized OneTrack. We also have a day or night view. So if we enter the day view here, we'll see now this is maybe a bit sort of bleached out on the video, but this allows us to work in bright sunshine, basically. So everything becomes visible. We can go back our track listings. Everything is reflected in our day view. We go back to personalize. We've got, let's go back to night view there. We can also set our lock color. So say we preferred green to be our lock color when we go back in. Now this is pretty hideous, but so we have purple as our playing color, and when we go to lock it becomes green. Okay, but seeing as that's fairly hideous, what we're going to go in and just hit the default button and it'll set us back to where we were. And lastly, we're going to go to iCloud archive. So the network is unavailable. I'm just going to go out and connect to, hopefully there's something available here, otherwise I'm not going to be able to demonstrate this very well. Okay, let's try and connect it to the Aircom network, which seems to have done it. We go back in here. It gathers the data from iCloud, and these are archives that I have saved. So I can create a new archive, and I can call that beta. It tells me that it's writing it to iCloud. Go back, the archive is actually there, and now it's okay. So we've created our OneTrack archive beta. This is an archive that we created at another stage. It loads it in from iCloud, so we can import the full archive, which is the whole thing, the whole database basically. I'm just going to cancel that. Or we can import all of our OneTrack playlists, and I'm going to cancel that. We can import individual playlists, obviously from iTunes playlists as well as OneTrack playlists, or the entire iTunes playlist database. So basically any combination of any of those. So maybe like let's import this fella here, just an individual playlist out of our OneTrack playlist. I'm going to import it. It tells us that it's been imported, and if we now go back, we jump back out of here and out of our settings, and we go all the way back out, and we go out to our playlists, and we'll see the taster, this is a fairly long name, is actually in here. Okay, so basically that's it. If we want to say we're in a playlist here, we've got the searches we had before, we want to add a track to it, tap the plus there, choose a song, say about to give out absolute beginners, and done. So we'll see that those tracks have been added down to the end, about to give out absolute beginners. We can delete those. Are you sure? Yep. Delete that one. Are you sure? Yep. What else? And as you can see, we can go in and we can do the settings from here as well. So nothing else. So what I've been working on is making this thing as solid and reliable as possible. So one of the things which is very handy, let's just go in here and check out one of these things. If we pull in from the side here, we know that we could get the side view on the iPad, but now OneTrack works perfectly while you're working. Let's just get something else down here. Oh, that's very loud. Okay, we'll leave that. That's a little bit quieter. We can go into, say, iBooks or whatever. You could have a PDF or whatever else would be happening on the right-hand side there. You can have the narrow or the thick view. Sorry, what that should have done was that one there. Okay, we can also, this obviously works in portrait view as well. So we can get a full long listing of all of our tracks and all of our playlists. Everything works fine in this view here. Obviously all of our settings and everything else. Let's just take our master volume down a little bit more. And back into where we were. And we get back to that again. Okay, so that's it. That should hopefully covers everything. And just run through the thing, get comfortable with it. Obviously, if you see any problems, we saw a couple in my demo there. I'll take a look at those myself. But anything you come across, please do get back to me as soon as possible. I'd like to get this out as soon as I can. And thank you very much for being beta testers.